All right, you guys, let's put that workout into place and start doing some stringing. So what I've got in front of me is the result of some of the palettes that I put together earlier. So when some of this might go a little fast for you, so I urge you, after you watch this segment, to jump online and download the supporting class materials or segment materials that I have for you here, and you'll really be able to drill down a little bit deeper into the techniques I'm going to share with you in this segment. So don't worry, I'm with you every step of the way. So let's take a look here. We're going to actually talk a little bit about thread and wire stringing material. First, let's go ahead and take a look at thread. I've got some threads over here that I use. It's a little bit of a heavier, almost cord-like thread, because we're going to be using single strands of this thread in a multiple strand necklace. So the weight isn't really an issue because all of these threads kind of negate the weight and kind of spread the weight around out on this necklace. So I've got some interesting colors here to use. You know, I always try and use an interesting color with the thread because the thread is actually, I feel, part of the design of this piece. So out in front of me here, you can see I've got a piece that's kind of in progress. I've got my little palette over here, and I've just come in and started to kind of put all of this together. Now, you may be looking at this going, Kate, I can't decipher how this goes together. Well, I'm going to show you in just a second how to tie some thread on, but I did want to point out a couple of things in this piece that is kind of a real basic when I string something like this. Take a look here at these strands, how I've really used spacer beads in these, you know, and I've got a bunch of little spacer beads over here that I use quite a bit in my pieces, and the small beads, I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, but really these are kind of the basics to really make your kind of showstopper beads really show up nicely in a piece like this. And I think it also gives it some uniformity. So don't forget about the importance of your spacers in multi-strand or single-strand pieces. So here I've got this ring, and this is going to be my starting point for this piece. And I'm going to go ahead and use thread. And when I measure a length of thread, I kind of actually just put it on and see what length I want to use. You know, it's just that scientific, you guys. So I want to give myself some extra thread if I need it. So I'm just going to kind of wrap it around my neck, give myself a couple of extra inches, and that's going to be my length. I know, don't tell anyone. It should be really precise, but it doesn't need to be. So next, what I'm going to do with this thread is you could use a little beading needle for this. This is a wire, twisted wire beading needle. But, you know, sometimes I feel like the beading needles like to get lost in my project. So what I do instead is I put just a little plastic bag down on my work surface, and I use a little bit of clear nail polish, or you could use some glue, you know, some nice sturdy glue if you wanted to do that. But clear nail polish actually works real well for me. And can you see how I'm just painting it on here? Right on the ends of my nylon thread to stiffen them. And the baggie kind of protects my work surface, but I really saturate the end of that thread with the nail polish. And I do that on all ends, both ends of the thread. And then when this dries, I can clip it right, just shear it right off with my thread scissors, and then I have a nice clean end to string on, so it's just like a needle. Let me show you next how to attach that thread to this ring. So if this is going to be a 6-strand necklace, very similar to what I've got going on next door here, I'm going to cut 3 long threads like this. And I've measured them just as I did before, right around my neck. And I'm going to come in with all 3 of those. I'm going to loop them through my ring so that they're even. And now, if I want to, I can use some of my smaller beads to just string to cover the threads there. But instead, I'm going to have the thread actually show on this one. I'm going to tie a knot, and can you see what I did? I just made an overhand knot, and now I'm going to use my pliers to just help me walk this knot all the way down. Then I split my threads and tighten everything up. And I can give each of those threads a little tug so that my knot is nice and tight. Can we see that there? Now I'm ready to jump in and string. And I'll just split my threads in half, like so. And as you can see on this piece here, how I've started with just a bunch of little beads and working my way up to the larger beads here. That's where your spacer beads really come in handy. For beading wire, it's really simple, you guys. All I do is I cut my wire with my wire cutters, and I put a little piece of tape right on the end, nice and sturdy. Then I just start stringing. And you know, just pick your beads right out of the palette and just put them right on your thread and see how things kind of shake out. You can see with this project, with this sample that I've got here, see again, we've used our little spacer beads there, and this single strand necklace is really showcasing all of your really interesting kind of say something beads like that. And you can see this is just a nice long piece, and we can wrap this around and wear as a multiple strand piece. It works really well that way as also to make it look like it's a multi-strand necklace in just a single strand. I have used the 49 strand bead stringing wire on this piece. And, you know, I chose that because this is such a long necklace. I wanted it to be fluid, but I also wanted it to be strong. So with this 49 strand, it's really nice and strong, but it also has that nice fluidity to it. You know, each of these beading wires hang just a little bit differently. The 7 strand and the 19 strand might be a little more stiff, so you can choose according to your preference, but this 49 strand is really my favorite. What you need to actually cut this wire is a really good, sturdy wire cutter that's made to cut this type of beading wire, because the threads or the wire underneath the nylon coating here, they're steel wires. So you want a really good cutter that's going to stand up to that wire. So once you've chosen your cutter, you can get a nice, clean, clear cut on that. And remember, working with thread versus the beading wire, it really just depends. For multiple strands, I like the flow of thread, and for single strands, I like that strength of the beading wire.